I will call to order the Board of Election Commissioners meeting for the City of Chicago. Good morning. My name is Maricel Hernandez. I'm the chair. And with me today is Commissioner June Brown.
Present.
And Commissioner William Cressy.
Also present.
Next item on the agenda is consideration of the agenda. Any proposed changes? If not, we'll proceed with the approval of the minutes of the Canvassing Board meeting of April 4th, 2023, which concluded on April 25th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved by Commissioner Brown.
Seconded by Commissioner Cressy.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Motion passes. Next is the Executive Director's report. Mr. Holliday.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioner Brown and Commissioner Cressy. Again, the staff is doing the post-election activities, cleaning up those things that may need to be done. Also, we met with the Office of Budget Management. They came over and sat down with us and talked about some budgetary items, and we're keeping before them about the warehouse. So we'll see how that works out. Today, after the meeting, I'll be traveling to Springfield for the meeting of the Association of County Commissioners and Clerks and Election Officials. That will go on until Friday morning. I have received quite a few phone calls that I had to address about payment of election official and judges. As I explained, the municipal election is paid for by the city, and at the time, the city, they outsource all the data to get checks printed and mailed, and that was the delay. Today, they'll start mailing checks for the April election. So that was the issue with the checks. I just wanted to bring it before you and let everyone know that it's nothing that the board is at fault for. It's the process that the city has during the municipal elections. This we didn't have with the county when they're paying the judges and the election workers, but the city, they just don't have an office in there anymore to print the checks. We were able to go pick them up, but from this third party, we can't. So the data is sent to them, they print the checks, and they mail them out.
Okay.
So outside of that, I don't have anything else, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. We have Trish call-in person. Could you identify yourself, please?
Yeah, we have somebody who dialed in, and also Brian. I just want to confirm your last name for the record.
Whiteley.
Okay, Brian Whiteley, thank you. And
Thank
call-in person, you're muted. Call-in. Maybe. I'm going to try unmuting them. 1 second. I just sent a request to unmute to see if they'll speak. We'll try to get back to that person.
In the meantime, we can proceed as long as
Thank
the
you.
person's not requesting public comment.
Okay. Let's see. Then we now go to the Assistant Executive Director's report, Mrs. Spera.
Morning, Madam Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. I would like to report that I'm holding post-election meetings with staff. My goal is to be completed with these meetings by the end of May. I also want to mention that the Minion held its post-election meetings with staff the last week of April. I'm in the planning stage for the 2024 primary and general elections. The space has been reserved for the election central operation, And I have a meeting scheduled to review and evaluate the performance of the temporary staff agencies. The registration and the early voting departments are scanning and then reviewing the ballot applications. The warehouse is recycling envelopes and judges' handbooks from the February and April elections. It also is recycling the unused ballots that were not inside the ESCs for both elections. And in closing, I would like to thank staff for their outstanding job performance and the many, many hours put in to make the elections successful.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Sandra? Thank you, Sandra. Please.
I hope Dominion picked up lunch, considering their recent windfall. That was a joke, folks.
On the post-election meetings with staff, thank you, and let us know what comes of it. Okay, what issues, if any, arise. And we have our Public Information Director, Max Bever. Max?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Just a few updates on my end. Last week, we welcomed 30 delegates from the National Conference of State Legislators, gave a tour of our offices as well as our vote by mail department. So I want to give a special thank you to our vote by mail department for showing them the Agilus machine as well as being on hand to answer all questions. It seemed like it was a good visit. We appreciated them stopping by. Communications wise, looks like we've got our summer projects are well underway, specifically our new website revamp. We took a couple of steps over the last couple of weeks. We put together an online website survey for voters as well as our community groups, reporters, anybody else who wants to take it. We also emailed it to every registered voter in Chicago. And we've received over 1,300 responses back so far. We might clear over 1,500. So very good feedback from the voters of Chicago that we're collecting to use as data of what is needed moving forward. We also put out an RFI 2 weeks back and received over 20 responses to our RFI.
Great.
That's a request for information. So we have gotten several website firms, vendors that make websites that are have experience in these projects in the past. We were reviewing those vendors and additional information that will help us build our RFP, our request for proposals, that is still scheduled to go out next week. We'll give everyone a month from there to respond for a response time near the end of mid-June. So we do expect to move forward on our schedule for this project. Hopefully select a new website vendor, a responsive website vendor by the end of June, and then have a new website up and running by the end of October of this year. So that is going well and hitting our schedule so far. Another summer project, we are working on our first steps for a voter engagement forum for late August. We have proposed that we could hold that at the super site, as well as perhaps have online survey or other component option. Once we have more information on that, we will share it, but that is our other big summer project in communications.
Great, great, thank you. Yes.
One quick comment, Max. I noted the tour that we had the officials, the delegates go on. I just want to point out the last summer we had the American Bar Association convention in Chicago. We conducted a tour of our facilities. It went over so well that this summer's convention is in Denver. There's going to be a tour of the Denver election authorities as well. I think this has we've created a monster, but a lot of people are interested to see the inner workings of how elections are done. And I think we can be very proud that we were the first authority to do that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I feel like that's good news moving forward. And given we're the third largest city with an expanded vote by mail department and handle more vote by mail ballots than many other national election authorities, I'm glad we get the chance to show off every now and then.
That's right. And then just as an aside, you just reminded me, Max, that with all RFIs and RFPs, I've had this in the back of my mind for a while. They should go after they're done, they're drafted. Legal should be reviewing and approving all RFIs and RFPs, and we should let our procurement person know about that. Just remind him or her about that, okay?
Certainly.
Okay, any further? Okay. The next thing, well, if we're done with that, then we'll go into old business, infrastructure projects and changes in election administration, including electronic poll books and voting equipment. Do we have any updates on that? Any planning?
Well, we're in the process of getting a RFP together for new poll books. So that should be out again mid or late June, or even sooner for that.
Are we anticipating using new poll books for November 2024 or March 2024?
Well, what the thought was is to, in March, if we got a vendor, use a few, but in November, do a complete rollout, but not try to roll the whole thing out in March of next year.
Okay. And I know there's been talk and bills regarding ranked choice voting. Would that affect the way the new electronic poll book would operate?
No, the ranked choice voting, it wouldn't affect the poll book. It only would affect the voting system, because that has to be built into our voting system. So it wouldn't affect the e-poll book.
Okay.
Charles, on that point, Dominion would have software that would allow ranked choice voting for our system?
Correct. Dominion, as we speak now, they do supply ranked choice voting in some other states. It just has to be built for our system, to our specifications and to our state statutes on how it should be. But Dominion already has it.
And remember, these election authorities all use different reporting systems, so Dominion would have to link their software to our reporting system.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And now I'll go to legislation. Mr. Lasker, any pending and or new legislation out there?
Thank you, Madam Chair. During our last meeting, I reported on several specific bills. There hasn't been any real action on any of them individually. It still looks like any election matters are going to be put into an omnibus bill, which has not yet been released publicly, at least. We have Mr. Bever actually was attending some meetings with the Secretary of State and the County Clerk's Office on some proposed changes to automatic voter registration. This board has generally supported the notion of automatic voter registration, but there's some proposals now that would shift the burden on determining a person's citizenship to the election authorities, which we think is kind of difficult because we don't actually have those people in front of us at the time that registration is happening. So there's other reasons that Mr. Bever's attended some meetings, and we're planning some in the future to see where we can go with this legislation. But other than that, I will keep you posted when an omnibus bill comes out, and we'll see what's actually in that.
Is there any chance that would pass by the end of this session?
That being the automatic voter registration or the omnibus?
Automatic voter registration.
I don't know. I suppose there's a chance that it could, but it seems like there's also some voices that are showing some concerns, not over the general aspect of the legislation, of course, but the administrative details.
Mhm.
So I think that that's the effort that's going on right now, is to try to slow it down and make sure that the legislature really has it thought through before they approve it.
Okay, and this is one of the reasons why I've suggested that we retain a lobbyist.
Yeah.
Because of issues like this and other issues that just crop up, we may not necessarily be aware, or we need to do certain things. And we need someone down there to help us out in Springfield. So I've mentioned this to Charles, that this should be a line item in our budget.
Yes.
And I think we should go ahead and start a process for selecting a lobbyist for that will help us beginning in the fall session, the fall winter session, whatever that next session is. So we need to get that going. Okay.
I completely agree. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I would agree as well, Madam Chair. And you know, sometimes the term would be lobbyist. That's what we're looking for, but it's really as an educational component to educate the legislature about the particular, you know, requirements and needs of this board, which without somebody there, you know, where they are, we don't have that.
We need a partner.
I think it's more like a legislative liaison. We don't necessarily, you know, the person doesn't, since we're a governmental entity, I don't think they have to be a certified lobbyist, but of course, those are the people with the right kind of experience. But it's like, you know, the State Board of Elections has a legislative liaison position, and I think we need something just like that.
Yeah, we need a liaison. Quick question on the ABR, because I know that was a hard fight historically. So do you anticipate issues, or I'm just thinking some voices are going to really come out on that?
So I'm going to start by saying that generally speaking, you know, automatic voter registration is in effect, and they're just looking at modifying the way it's working. So it's not like it's going to disappear. And then, Mr. Bever, if you'd be willing to chime in a little bit more detail as to what the current conversations are.
Yeah. How does this bill change ABR?
Certainly. So the concerns about this proposed legislation, it's Senate Bill 2023, that is currently sponsored by Senator Ram Villavelam. It was actually those concerns were brought to us by members of what is called the Just Democracy Coalition, but is more of the community organizations that we've worked with over the last 2 years, including Asian Americans Advancing Justice, many other community organizations that work with non-English speakers and new citizens within Chicago. They came to us with concerns about this bill. Ultimately, the bill seems to be wanting to increase automatic voter registration, but by doing so, by having anybody who signs up for any type of identification with the Secretary of State's office will be automatically opted in to voter registration. So possibly even non-citizens who are applying for an ID. And if there is confusion on the front end with the Secretary of State's office, or they don't have proper documentation at that time to prove citizenship status or not, this new legislation puts what's called a back-end approach, is what the legislation is proposing, that pushes down all that responsibility to local election officials to follow up with these new voter registrations through a postcard in the mail that has to be returned back within 21 days. It looks like it might be 23 days in the next proposed legislation. That has to be returned back to our office that confirms that person's citizenship status. The groups that came to us with their concerns believes that if there isn't any, you know, if loopholes aren't closed here, or that there isn't some time to double check everything in this proposed legislation, that could lead to somebody being deported or other type of civil penalties from immigration. We have some questions, I think, from the board of how much this might cost. Obviously, we're heading into budget season. If we are required to do mailings to possible thousands, even hundreds of thousands of people as part of this new process related to it, you know, that will increase our costs, especially postage costs. So at this time, we did also meet with Cook County representatives to hear some of their feedback. We will continue to discuss this. And as Mr. Lasker said, it doesn't seem like this specific bill has moved during this session. This is just another situation where we hear maybe or might not be part of some type of omnibus bill. At this point, I think we just want to learn any other additional information, discuss if we want to share any of those concerns with the bill sponsor. But at this point, this was a situation where this was brought to us by community organizations that have active concerns about this legislation, and we do want to make sure those concerns are heard.
Are there any meetings scheduled with the bill sponsor?
Not at this time, nor is there any subject matter hearings. It doesn't look like this has been put onto, move forward in any way in Springfield, similar to the subject matter hearings that were held for ranked choice voting.
Mhm.
This is again another situation where I think we're just catching up on some info of whether or not this is going into an omnibus, whether an omnibus is happening. So I think we're all just keeping our ear to the ground over these next few weeks through the end of May. But at this point, it has not moved and has not been scheduled for any other subject matter.
I just get concerned about anything moving into the omnibus.
Absolutely.
That's my concern. And so I'm not familiar enough with the workings of the state legislature, but the question for me is should we be reaching out to anyone in the state legislature, even though, we're watching it, but is that enough? Should we be more proactively reaching out to the bill sponsor and explaining our concerns, maybe jointly with other election authorities? I don't know, but if something like this passes, it is creating such a burden, it seems, on election authorities, for us to figure out who is a citizen, who isn't. And, that's something pretty heavy.
Much agreed, Chairwoman. I think, possible good next step here is a letter drafted on behalf of Executive Director Holliday, perhaps in conjunction with Cook County, at least raising the concerns that were brought to us by community organizations, as well as some additional questions addressed to the Senate sponsor as a place to start.
Yeah, Max, I'm just wondering, are they expecting us to verify the citizenship, or is it simply a statement on a card where they certify, they say, yes, I am a citizen, and then it's the onus is on them?
I know that I don't read between every single line on proposed legislation and can get, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of direction, which is another one of my big questions or concerns about moving this responsibility to local election officials is what needs to be on this card, if we're accepting verified documents or electronic copy. I do believe that is part of many questions I think that still exist for Senate Bill 2023. I know my main would be of, what information is being passed down by the Secretary of State, what languages we should be including on these postcards, other ways that we should be communicating. It's not exactly clear, I think, in its current form.
Yeah.
And the legislation speaks to the kinds of documents that the people show up with to prove their citizenship and residency and so forth, but if they're showing up to the Secretary of State's office, and I think the legislation almost presumes that there may be errors that happen, which is why they then place the burden on the election authority to do the follow-up. And so I think that's, those are some of the procedures that are at question here. And historically, I do believe, my recollection is when automatic voter registration first started in Illinois, it was an automatic opt-in. We had concerns about that from the beginning. And then we in the community group started to see problems with non-citizens who, without checking any box saying, yes, I want to vote, they were automatically getting registered and contacting our office to say, I just got a voter registration card. I didn't ever ask for that. And it's going to cause problems for me. So we as a board and other election authorities did contact the legislature several years ago to say, this is a problem. And then they made it an opt-in where you had to actually check the box. And that seems to have worked much better to cut down on those erroneous registrations.
And still, though, as you know, Adam, there were some unfortunate cases where people have been deported because they go to get a driver's license and without knowing, got registered, got the card in the mail, figured, oh, I guess I can vote, went and voted, and then they're on the next flight out. So,
Yeah, I think that, you're dealing with people frequently new to the country, frequently who don't speak English as a native language. And also, quite frankly, I think if a government official at that office says, here, would you like to register to vote? That to the, lesser educated non-citizen might make them think they're actually entitled to because they have someone in the government asking them if they'd like to do it. So these are all the kinds of issues that have been raised by the community groups that Mr. Bever has now discussed with the Secretary of State's office and with the county clerk's office. So we will certainly keep in mind communication on the bill. I think it's important, but it's also noteworthy it hasn't had any hearings yet. So that's
Right.
optimistic.
I would also caution that as you're looking at those who are expressing concerns, the community groups, several community groups historically were involved in the passing of this. So I would also get feedback from them because I think it could make it very sticky wicky if we do it differently.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. Our first initial contact with Secretary of State's office, not to put any onus or blame, but it seemed to have the message of, this is what's proposed. We don't know if we feel like it's necessary to follow up with most of these organizations. So at the very least, I think that we can help share at least possibly to the bill sponsor what we've heard from other organizations. I know the county has its own concerns about religious groups, specifically Jehovah's Witnesses and others that, have sued in the past for automatic voter registration, for their religious beliefs of not voting as part of that. So I think, through this week, we'll continue to work on that and keep all the commissioners apprised. But I think a good next step with us is to do a joint letter, possibly with the county clerk and maybe others who might be interested, at least raising these concerns, these initial concerns that were brought to us.
Right. I just don't want any unforced errors because I think that there could be some really loud voices on both sides, pros and cons. So as much information as we can get would work.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, if we
Just to wrap up my legislative report, the commissioners are aware that we had some issues also with the proposals for ranked choice voting throughout the state, and here in Chicago there was the pending bill that was moving forward on the presidential primary ranked choice voting. The County Clerks Association, our board, the AECOI, all raised concerns about the funding for the requests, not for the general idea of whether or not to do ranked choice voting. But, as it turns out, there had been no governmental study done as to the potential economics and financial impact of the legislation. And there are some substantial costs that would be involved that I think were not anticipated by the legislature that was moving forward at that time only with a very cursory financial overview done by third-party non-government organizations that were pushing for the bill. So it appears that bill has been put on the back burner, at least for now, so that they can do a closer look.
Okay.
And that is the conclusion of my legislative report. Thank you very much, Madam Chair and Commissioners.
Thank you. Okay. If there are no further questions, let's move on to new business. We have two attorney contractor agreements today for approval. And one is with our counsel, Joan T. Agnew, and with one of our contract attorneys, Barbara Goodman. Both excellent attorneys who have done great work for us over the years. Joan Agnew's contract is for a term of another year at the rate of $275 per hour. Is there a motion to approve the attorney contractor agreement with Joan T. Agnew for the term June 1st of 23 through May 31st of 24 at the rate of $275 an hour?
So moved, Commissioner Brown.
Seconded by Commissioner Cressy.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Motion passes. And we have a second attorney contractor agreement with Barbara Goodman. Is there a motion to approve this particular contractor agreement for the term June 1st of 23 through May 31st of 24 at the rate of $210 per hour.
So moved by Commissioner Cressy.
Seconded by Commissioner Brown.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Cressy votes aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. The next item is the legal report. Mr. Lasker, do we have anything?
Well, thank you again, Madam Chair. I just want to reiterate, Mrs. Farah talked about having post-election meetings with staff. Some of what we're just going to be discussing in those meetings is upcoming procurements, things like the electronic poll books that you heard about. We need a new cartage RFP, temp staffing, and so forth. So I just wanted to point out that she is including legal. We've got Joan Agnew is overseeing the e-poll book procurement, having also gone through that previously with the board. And of course, Joan and I are in constant communication about the various projects we're working on together. So that's, we've sort of taken off our election law hats for the moment for the spring and started putting on the contract and procurement hats. I do want to, also point out that we still are missing an official, there's still a vacancy in the position of procurement officer for the board. So it's been a challenge trying to find someone to fill that spot. I know they've been working on it. So hopefully that'll happen soon. But I am looking forward to overseeing these procurements, making sure they go smoothly. The last thing really to report is that May 25th is going to be the deadline for filing any election contests related to the April 4th election. We're beyond the point for any discovery recounts. I have no indication at all that anybody's going to challenge any of the results of the April election, which, as we know, internally went quite smooth. We're all very happy with the processes and the results, not in terms of who won or lost, but in terms of it appears to have been a very clean, open, transparent, and accurate election. So we're in good shape.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. We have no further questions on that. We have no financial report. Do we have any public comment? I don't
Do
know.
not have any, well, I'm not sure who is caller user number 1 or,
That's okay.
okay,
Been no
I
request
don't
for
have any
speaker.
requests.
Okay. Mr. Lasker, is there a need for executive session today?
No, not today, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. If not, then I think our business is done for today, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved by Commissioner Brown.
And seconded by Commissioner Cressy.
Probably moved and seconded. All those in favor, please state aye.
Commissioner Brown votes aye.
And Commissioner Cressy votes aye as well.
Motion passes and we're adjourned. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.
Take care.
And
everyone.
congratulations again, Chair Hernandez.
Yes,
For that Vanguard Award, congratulations, Madam Chair. Very proud to work with you.
It was fun. Yes, thank you so much.
Congratulations. And Charles for your award as well.
All right, thanks. Thank you.